You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
From the AACI studios in downtown Tapio, Jerusalem, it's Louis Live. Now here's your host, me, Ari Louis. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well up there. Hope everyone's staying safe. I appreciate everyone listening to the show. Tonight we're here till midnight, Israel time. Thank you so much for joining us. I do not want to waste any time. I want to get to our guest right away. This is a huge honor and a privilege to have this gentleman on Louis Live tonight. He was the original owner of the Phoenix Suns. He was involved with the 1987 NFL replacement players and promoted Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier. It's a huge honor to have Mr. Sheldon Saltman on the show. How are you doing today, Mr. Saltman?
Fine, Harry, but my name is Shelley.
Shelley, okay. All right, so beyond
80 years ago, my mother called me Sheldon.
I apologize.
Or sometimes when she was upset with me, she'd say, Zindel, try.
I never got those names as a kid because I just, actually my Hebrew name is Yehuda, and then I was always go by Ari. I never got that. Whenever I got in trouble, it was just always Ari. I never got one of those. Like my friend, he has a middle name, and that's a killer because when you get in trouble, then you're called by all three names, and you know it's serious stuff.
That's true.
There's so many places to begin with your career. Very, very accomplished career, very historic. I'm from Arizona.
Never held, Ari, you have to understand. First of all, my late wife, may she rest in peace, Molly, used to say an expert. The definition of expert is somebody who's away from home. And I was always away from home. Whether it was a sports event in Russia or the Olympics or traveling with my friend Andy Williams, who is a big singer here in the United States, I was always away from home. Anyway, I'm delighted to be here. Just ask any questions you want. I'm open to answer.
Oh, thank you so much. Again, this is a huge honor and privilege to have you on Louis Live. And I am originally from Phoenix, Arizona, grew up there, grew up as a big Suns fan, and come to find you're the original owner of the Phoenix Suns.
Well, I'm not by myself. There were a whole bunch of us, Andy Williams, myself, Dick Block, all University of Arizona roommates together, Dick Block, Don Diamond, and Don Pritzker. But it was all a bunch of good boys with a lot of Zionist background.
Sure, that's something we definitely appreciate here on Israel Sports Radio, of course. And how did that come about? How did you guys decide, hey, let's invest in a team, let's purchase a team, and why in particular Phoenix?
Well, really nothing very, very exciting about that. I was very close to J. Walter Kennedy, who was the commissioner at the time of the NBA, and he said, hey, we're going to expand, and we're going to expand into 2 new cities. And along came Dick Block, who at the time was the chairman of the board of Filmways, along with Don Diamond, who was a successful trader and mercantile trader, and Don Pritzker, Don Pitt, who was a successful lawyer in Phoenix, and they put together a group. Then they came to our group called Barnaby Sports, which basically was Andy Williams, Larry Cardigan, and myself, and then to a law firm, our law firm, Rosenfeld, Sussman, and Meyer, and they put together a bunch of people, and suddenly we had the investment capital and the desire, and the team came about.
An interesting story with the Suns and their origination that they were going to get the number 1 pick, but they lost to a coin toss to the Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh yeah, that's the truism. What happened, and here the brilliance of Larry Cardigan, our attorney, came into play. Milwaukee came into the league the same year as us. I believe it was '67, and there was one great player up that year. His name was Lou Alcindor, who later became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the most prolific scorer in the history of the NBA. Well, it had to be a flip coin. J. Walter Kennedy he's the commissioner at the time. He was in New York. We were in Phoenix, and the people from, Herb, oh my goodness, he's a senator now, Herbie Cole was the owner, along with my dear friend Bob Block in Milwaukee, and the commissioner, in sight of 3 other people, flipped the coin as to who would have the first draft pick, and the draft pick being Lou Alcindor. And Lou Alcindor prolific scorer, not only in the NBA, but probably one of the greatest basketball players ever in the NCAA when he played for UCLA under the great coach John Wooden. So Commissioner Kennedy asked who will call first, and Herbie Cole in Milwaukee, now a senator at the time representing the Milwaukee ownership group, turned around and said the courtesy should go to Phoenix. And we took it, and the commissioner flipped the coin in New York, and we all urged Dick Block to take heads. It came up tails, and Milwaukee got Lou Alcindor. However, not to be outdone, Larry Cardigan knew of a great ball player who had been banned from the NBA because of having gambled on sports, small amount of money, in his freshman year in Iowa by the name of Connie Hawkins. Connie had been playing with what they called Negro basketball in those days, a Negro basketball league, a team called the Rensselaer Five out of Pittsburgh. And he suggested to Connie, sue the NBA, they'll capitulate, and we'll take the rights to Connie. And so we matched Lou Alcindor with Connie Hawkins. However, as great as Connie was, and he was great, Lou Alcindor made the difference for Milwaukee, and it's the only time they ever won a championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Teamed up with Oscar Robertson and won a title in Milwaukee. I guess you learn a valuable lesson, and that tails never fails with a coin toss, right?
I don't know about that.
But the Suns, though, had some pretty good success early. They made it to the NBA Finals in 1976. Were you still with the team at that time?
Oh, no. I had moved on. I had gone on to become president of the Lakers and the Kings under Jack Kent Cooke. And then I left there because I became a founder of a company called Invest West Sports. And we started other things. And one of the things we started was the New Orleans Jazz, who today are the Utah Jazz. And I was executive vice president of that company. And the New Orleans Jazz, New Orleans has a team again, but for some strange reason, they just didn't support the Jazz when they were there, and the Jazz moved to Utah. And where Sam Battistone, my partner, who is a Mormon, brought it home to where he felt to belong, and the Utah Jazz have done very, very well over the years.
Absolutely.
My last job in sports, except for writing my column and my books and so forth, was when I retired as president of 20th Century Fox Sports in 1980. It's quite a few years.
Well, I want to stick with the Jazz for a few moments because when the Jazz were in New Orleans, a man by the name of Pistol Pete Maravich, one of the most flashy players...
Probably would have been, if he didn't die at too early an age, probably been one of the great... Well, he was in a brief while. In the brief flash, he was one of the greatest passers and assist makers in the history of professional basketball.
Absolutely, and really impressive considering that he was a big man and was able to do those things with the basketball. And what I found fascinating about Pistol Pete, he played for some teams that struggled a bit in New Orleans, but he was, I guess to some degree, kind of the man of that city. There wasn't.
No, he really wasn't. Well, he was the man of the city. He was the marquee.
The marquee.
But don't forget, we had Gail Goodrich.
And
good point. Gail Goodrich was the linchpin and the cornerstone. And he made that team go as far as it could go. What we truly lacked, was a big man. Now, when I played ball at the University of Massachusetts, I was 6 feet, and I was considered average height. And my roommate, who was a center, he was only 6'4". Today, if you're 6'4", you're a passing guard. You're too small.
Right.
I mean, these kids today are, they're 7 feet and 6'10", and my pal Ernie Vanderway, whose son Tiki went on to play some pretty good basketball in the NBA. He's only 6'10", and they call him a small forward.
Wow. That's incredible at 6'10". And you had, obviously, some great moments with the Jazz. I'll go back a little bit to the Los Angeles Lakers and some of the players that came through Los Angeles while you had your tenure there with the ball club.
Well, that was the year, if you remember, when 1971-72, when they won the record that had established the record that has still not been broken, 33 straight games. Now, I had nothing to do with that. I was just an executive. But the general manager was Pete Newell, a brilliant, brilliant man who had coached at the University of California, probably next to John Wooden, considered the best college coach of all time. with deference to Coach K at Duke and Bobby Knight at Indiana. However, we had a young shooting guard that I used to shoot around with before the games. He had long hair and a big mustache. He was a sixth man. He was the best sixth man in the league. His name was Pat Riley, and he went on to become a great coach.
Absolutely.
Meanwhile, that team did have Wilt Chamberlain.
Yep.
It had, let's see if I can remember the whole team, Cazzie Russell, Happy Hairston, Gail Goodrich, and Mr. Basketball himself, Jerry West. And what you might not know, you know the NBA logo, Ari?
Yes, it's after Jerry West's face. It looks like his face.
It's not his face. It's his whole position, his body structure, his posture while shooting a ball. Take a look at it carefully, and you'll notice that it is Jerry, who still remains a very dear friend. Anyway, that was the team, and it did pretty well.
Absolutely, won an NBA championship. And what I found fascinating about that team, Wilt Chamberlain, who is a superstar in many, many respects, he had more of a smaller role, if you will, on the team. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of felt that was more Jerry West's team. What were your relationships like with Wilt Chamberlain?
No, you're wrong. If I may correct you,
sure, go ahead,
you weren't
please.
there and you're younger. Wilt Chamberlain made that team go when and if he wanted to. If Wilt wanted to make it a 50-point game, he could make it a 50-point game. Wilt Chamberlain was one of the greatest ball players of all time, one of the greatest athletes I've ever known.
Absolutely.
Oh, and my relationship? Great, with all the guys. We're all still friends, and Jerry is going to do marvelous things. He's now, as a matter of fact, a consultant, just left the Lakers. He's a consultant to the San Francisco Warriors, and my friend Michael Goober's brother, Dr. Michael Goober's brother, Peter Goober, who is a successful producer, is now the majority owner of the Warriors, and with Jerry West acting as consultant, look for things to happen. Jerry is probably one of the finest basketball minds. Remember, he's the one who picked Pat Riley to become a coach out of the broadcast booth. And Pat was acting as a color commentator for a great basketball announcer, and a man I hired, Chick Hearn. So, but at the same time, back in 1971-72, the man who was the coach, who actually lost his voice in the middle of the season, he himself was a great Hall of Fame ball player, Bill Sherman. And Bill is still with us, not feeling in the best of health, but he's a great guy.
You know, Chick Hearn, even growing up in Arizona, certainly familiar with his work. He came up with the phrase, put it in the deep freeze, I believe. And
among other things. It's in the popcorn machine.
Yep.
That's all she wrote, and he can't think, when talking about Wilt Chamberlain, who probably was the worst foul shooter of all time, despite his prolific scoring, he would turn around and say, oh my God, he can't hit the ocean with that ball.
And it's truly incredible that many things he said still live on today. That's how much of an influential broadcaster Mr. Hearn was. And you mentioned that Wilt Chamberlain being a great athlete, and I know you've been involved with boxing as well in addition to basketball in the NFL. How realistic was the possibility of Wilt Chamberlain boxing Muhammad Ali?
Well, that's the background of that story. And if you look at the Encyclopedia Britannica, you'll see the picture we posed of Wilt standing over Ali with his arm outstretched over Ali's head, which is huge. We brought, I was with Bob Arum in those days, and we brought Wilt. I flew in with Seymour Goldberg, his manager, and myself to the Houston Astrodome, where we were to sign Wilt to fight Muhammad Ali. And downstairs, posing for pictures and everything, and Wilt got a call. You have to understand, Wilt was holding out that year for more money from the Lakers. And at that point, I was not involved with the Lakers. I was involved with other things. And suddenly, the call came in. We didn't know what it was. And if we had a press conference scheduled for upstairs on the fifth floor of the Houston Astrodome, which at the time was one of the eighth wonders of the world, we went up to hold a press conference. Myself, Angelo Dundee, Ferdy Pacheco, and Ali. And Ali was brilliant. Wilt is tall, but he will fall, and all the crazy limericks he would make up. And Ali kept talking, and there was no Wilt. Wilt didn't come up. No Wilt. What was happening? Suddenly, Bob Arum come up and whispered in my ear, hey, Wilt is going back to Los Angeles. He's taking the next plane, and he's jilting us. oh my goodness, what do you do? So Angelo Dundee, quick on his feet, he leaned over to Ali, and we grabbed Jimmy Ellis, who had been Ali's boyhood friend, and at one point kind of a paper heavyweight champion in Ali's loss while Ali was in suspension. And he had quickly announced that we put the fight together. Aram actually made the announcement because I was always behind the scenes, the way I like it. Aram made the announcement that we're going to have a fight from two boyhood friends who once were sparring partners, two champions, Muhammad Ali and Jimmy Ellis, and that's how that fight came about, and that's how the fight with Will Chamberlain didn't come about. Now, on reflection, I believe, having spent years, first at my father's knee back in Boston, where he worked with fighters and so forth, and so many fights over the years, I truly believe that Ali would have cut Will Chamberlain to ribbons.
Yeah, great.
If he could get inside Will's powerful reach. If Will held him away and hit him once, he probably would have certainly done a lot of damage.
Yeah, my father used to tell me as a kid, because he brought up the story a lot, that he mentioned this fight was going to take place, and I said, hey, Dad, who would have won? He's like, well, what do you mean? If Ali played Will Chamberlain basketball, Wilt would win. You know, Ali's
absolutely, your father's right.
Yeah, Ali's heavyweight champion of the world. It's boxing. He's going to win. Now, that Jimmy Ellis story, I find that fascinating because when that fight took place, that was the only fight of Ali's career. Angelo Dundee was not in his corner. He was in Jimmy Ellis's corner.
That is correct.
Yes.
That's it.
So talk a little bit about that.
You know who was in Ali's corner?
I do not know for that fight. Who was in his corner?
Eddie Futch.
Eddie Futch.
Who
Okay.
happened to be, ironically, a great trainer, and earlier he had been Joe Frazier's trainer.
Right. It's really fascinating when the lines cross and you go to different corners. But why did Angelo choose to be in Jimmy Ellis's corner? Wasn't he a lot closer than
very simple. He loved Ali, but Ali was very close to Jimmy also. And he felt that it really was, going in, it wasn't the best matchup. And he felt that Jimmy needed all the tools he could have. In this case, the mind of Angelo Dundee, which is ranked with Emmanuel Stewart and Gil Clancy and Eddie Futch and so many others over the years as a great training mind. He needed Angelo in his corner, and that's how they tried to make it. As it was, the fight went on it was a 12-round fight, went on for 11 rounds, and Ali truly pulled punches. He didn't want to hurt his friend, and there was never any doubt as to the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Ali dominated that fight. Now, of course, you were involved with many boxing promotions and Ali Frazier as well. How did that come about? How did you get these two heavyweight champions?
Well, that's interesting. I think that's an interesting story. Ali had been out of the fight game for 3 years. And Frazier was the reigning champion, having gone through an elimination, taking on all comers. At the names like Ernie Shavers was one, and Jimmy Ellis, of course, was another, and another was a guy named Roy Peterson. But they all faded by the wayside, Jerry Quarry, as Frazier emerged to the top. So he was undefeated. And you remember when Ali was suspended, he was undefeated. And so March 8, 1971 was settled as a date for the fight. It all came about when a friend of mine, Franklin Freed, who owned a music promotion company in Chicago called Triangle Productions, was friendly with a guy named Hendler, who is a trash commissioner, garbage commissioner in the state of Illinois. And he had learned that now that Ali's suspension was lifted, Ali would love to fight Frazier. Now remember, Ali was rusty, hadn't fought anybody at all. Well, they needed the money, and they came to a very old friend of mine, Jerry Parencio, who was able to raise the money. And the primary money came from, and this was my first instance of meeting Jack Kent Cooke, came from Jack Kent Cooke. And the fight was put together. My job primarily was to handle the promotion worldwide, get the marketing, and I used the modus operandi I used so many times. I took Ali on a whirlwind tour of some 31 cities, never leaving the airport, where in 2 weeks we had 31 press conferences and boxing exhibitions. The fight was March 8th, as I said, 1971. It was a terrific battle, and the only time in history that two undefeated world champions in the same weight division were to meet. And it was a great fight, could have gone either way. As rusty as he was, Ali danced, and that's where Boudini Brown, Drew Brown is his name, coined the phrase, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, which became synonymous with Ali's style of boxing. And in the, I believe it was the 12th round, it might have been the 13th, it was the only knockdown in the fight, and it was a knockdown. Frazier just tagged him. Ali went down, but he came up, but Frazier won the fight. The other two battles that we did were epic battles, and perhaps in the eyes of boxing men who were around then and many who have reviewed the films to this day, or the tapes, or the digitized, whatever they are, think that the Thriller in Manila was probably the greatest fight that has ever taken place between two classic heavyweight boxers.
That fight truly epic. It was a brutal fight, very devastating. And
well, a lot of people don't know, and I was there. First of all, the heat was, and the humidity, if it were 102 degrees, it was 110 degrees with humidity in the ring.
Wow.
And Joe Frazier, Eddie Futch, threw in the towel at the end of the 14th round, and Joe didn't come out. But if he hadn't, Angelo Dundee was supporting Freddie Pacheco was on the side, holding Ali up, because Ali was about to collapse to the floor. Many people don't know that.
So potentially, had Frazier's corner not stopped the fight, Ali may have not been able to continue the 15 that Frazier would have been.
Either way, these two men, it was their finest moment, and they took it out on each other, and what they left in the ring was absolutely nothing. They gave it their all.
There was obviously a lot of hatred, a lot of bad words, bad blood between both fighters. How much of that
Not really.
I was going to say, how much of that was real? How much was that staged for
promotion?
promotion?
On Ali's part, it was never real. It was never real. Ali was a master showman. Probably, I've had the pleasure of working with some great individual personal promoters. Ali was the best, head and shoulders. But Ali was putting Joe on. He meant nothing by it. But then he hit a chord. He hit a chord when he finally called Joe the Gorilla. The Gorilla is going to go to Manila. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, the Gorilla. I'm going to get the Gorilla in Manila. It'll be a thrill in the chilla when I get the Gorilla in Manila.
From
right.
then on, and I was very close to Joe's brother, and he used to tell me that Joe just hated Ali, and he still does. Ali hates nobody. Ali is a gentle, peaceful man. He really is a lovely man. Unfortunately, today, he's suffering from, as we all know, from Parkinson's. They get called it Parkinson's syndrome, but it's Parkinson's and a little bordering on a little dementia. But what a great man he was.
Yeah.
Or is. He's still here.
Absolutely. And they fought 3 times, of course, in the 70s, 71, 74, and 75. My question to you is, when Ali got in the ring with Joe Frazier, I doubt that it was his prime, although he was heavyweight champion for the 75 fight. Had Ali fought Frazier in, let's say, the late 60s, when he had more...
There'd be no contest.
Okay.
No contest.
Yeah, that's the most...
See, I have a couple of heroes in life for what they've done. Strange, opposite things, and here I'm on Israeli radio. They may not agree with what I say, but I'm going to say it. A man named Ted Williams was my boyhood hero. He may have been the greatest baseball player of all time, except during World War II, he answered the call to his country, and he fought as a Marine pilot, getting shot down, and he was a hero. Came back to play for the Boston Red Sox. The team I've always followed. And in Korea, when there was problems, he volunteered again. He lost actually 4.5 years of his prime. Now, Ali, here's where I become a little controversial.
Sure.
Ali is a man who believes in his faith. Now, you and I don't have to believe in it, but you have to respect people who generally are peaceful and believe in their faith. Ali refused to step forward to be inducted because, as he said at that time, we're all there in Houston, who were there and saw it. He says, I have no argument with the Vietnamese, and they've never done anything to me, and my religion will not allow me to fight. Now, I'm not going to go any further than to say that Ali, that's his belief. Now, I'm not getting into, the other things that we all know and we all do not like. But in this case, he was sincere, and he lost 3.5 years of his prime athletic prowess. And that's about it. That's all I can say about that.
And switching gears to baseball, you mentioned the Boston Red Sox, being a fan of Ted Williams. Now, I understand that you have family members that played for the Boston Braves. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, my Uncle Eddie, God bless him. In fact, in 1928, matter of record, my Uncle Eddie Saltman married my Aunt Edie in between the halves. He used to have double headers of a Boston Braves. It was the Boston Bees, actually, then. Boston Bees, Cincinnati Reds baseball game, and they got married at home plate with a rabbi officiating.
Wow, that's awesome.
But my Uncle Milt played for the Philadelphia Athletics, and he was kind of my hero. He's my father's youngest brother of 7 brothers, and they were all athletes, except for my Uncle Jakey, who was a paraplegic, and so he was a bookie, so we kept everything in the family.
All right, okay, so that's the way to do it. And speaking of your background, when you grew up, it was during the Great Depression. I'll bring this up because America right now is going through some tough financial times. What is your message to say to people that are maybe concerned, worried, hey, how are we going to get out of this? How are we making through these tough times?
Listen, I have no message. I have no message. I'm like anybody else who's a citizen who believes deeply in Israel, believes deeply in the United States, and I'm writing a book right now. I've got 63 chapters done. It probably won't get published. It might, who knows, on optimism. And my attitude throughout my life, I've been blessed. I'm one of the very few men in life who've worked in industries, entertainment, and sports that he always enjoyed doing since he was a kid and was able to make a living at it. So my advice to anybody is just keep going forward, or as the great late Satchel Paige would say, and do you know who Satchel Paige was?
Sure, absolutely. A great pitcher in the Negro Leagues, and had he been allowed to pitch in the majors, would have been one of the greatest ever in the major leagues.
Right. Well, they brought him up, and nobody knows how old he was.
Right.
But he would have the expression, and I say this to everybody who may be listening, anywhere in the world, his expression was, don't look over your shoulder, somebody may be gaining. Now, that simply means keep your chin up, all those different euphemisms, or whatever you want to call them. Just keep going forward and just literally, do the best you can, and somehow things work out.
It's a great message. It's really the only thing we can do anyway, so it's the best thing to do. I want to go more into your background because your family home was a place that a lot of famous, influential people came by to your house. Who do you remember?
That's true.
Who do you remember from those times?
Oh, God, I remember everybody. Well, as a matter of fact, my father, where I grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, many, many Irish people. You know, we had a wonderful, strong, small Jewish community, but many Irish people. But I will tell you this, that at my father's house, let me go back further. When I was a kid, I lived in my grandmother's house, and I can remember it. We lived there till I was 5 years old, and my grandmother in Cambridge, Massachusetts, rented out the top floor to Harvard Law students. And many times, some of the professors would come there and hold impromptu seminars. And among the two, I didn't know who they were at the time. As I got old later, I appreciated what had happened, because I was just a little kid, and I was bounced on the knee or talked to by these various people. And one turned out to be Judge Louis Denbitz Brandeis, who was the first Jewish Supreme Court justice and a wonderful, wonderful man of democracy. And Felix Frankfurter, another great Jewish jurist. They would come there. They were, at the time, teaching at Harvard Law School. Then at my father's house, his best friend, growing up in Cambridgeport, Massachusetts, was a man named Thomas Francis O'Neill. My father had 7 brothers, as I said, and I was the first Saltman boy born, and he did not want to get any of his brothers upset. So at my bris, Thomas Francis O'Neill, Uncle Tip, who went on to become a Speaker of the House of the United States Congress,
Sure.
He held me at my bris.
Wow.
And among the people that hung out from time to time playing pinochle or casino or poker with my dad was a man named Eamon de Valera, who went on to become the first president of Ireland.
Wow.
But with my roots in Israel, although I never met him, my father's cousin, who they've called the general, was a man named Matti Hud. And I believe he was a general during the Yom Kippur War and for the Air Force, and I think he also, I may be mistaken, but I believe he was the first chairman of El Al.
Wow, truly impressive. So you had a lot of...
in fact, and my partner in many, many endeavors, I haven't talked to in years, maybe he's listening, was Hezi Carmel, who at the time was the Consul General to the United States. And he went back home to live and work in Herzliya. So my roots are deep in Israel. I was part of the Maccabeah game movement. I was honored by the American Friends of the Hebrew University. So when you asked me to come on the show, I want you to know how honored I am and how thrilled I am.
Well, we certainly appreciate it. I've been looking forward to this for several weeks now since this interview was booked. And again, it's truly touching for you to be on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio. And I want to move on to the entertainment industry because you've had a lot of influence there as well, in addition to sports. The Jackie Gleason show, I'm big fan of that show. Now, obviously, I didn't watch it when it was going live. I watched the reruns, I'll be honest with you about that. But great show. And also worked with the Leave It to Beaver show and Mr. Ed. So talk about those experiences with the television industry.
Well, basically, I was Vice President Promotion, Marketing, and Advertising for MCA, the Music Corporation of America, working for a great man named Lou Wasserman. Who truly was a giant in the entertainment industry and a benevolent despot. We had an interesting combination. I had been found in Cleveland by a man named D.R. Barton, where I was working at a television station, and he had only sent two people to MCA in all the history, two guys from Cleveland. I was the second one, a Jewish publicist, and 32 years earlier, he sent another Jewish publicist, and that was Lou Wasserman. So we had an instant rapport. As for Mr. Ed and Leave It to Beaver and Wagon Train and Have Gun Will Travel and so many shows over the years, I don't know where to start. But when you ask about Leave It to Beaver, one of the promotions I tried to do at MCA, we were selling the shows into rerun or syndication, so I decided, as a message to all of the stations who were buying it, I made a deal with a company in China that made little toys, plush toys. So I had them make miniature beavers, and I sent them out all over the country, and people were getting kicked out of them. And one day, Sonny Werblin, who eventually was the man who owned the Jets and so forth, he was one of the bosses. He came running into my office. He had this on his desk. He says, "What is this thing?" I said, "What do you mean, what is this thing?" "It's a beaver." He says, "No, it looks like a little rat. Did you send this out to all of our clients?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Get rid of them right away." So I didn't know what to do with it, except that my brother-in-law, Sidney, owned a small 5 and dime on the Jersey Shore. And I said, "Sidney, here, take them, see if you can sell them." And he sold them as little keychains, and we made out all right.
Absolutely. And I got to know, it might sound like a bit of a cheesy question, but what was Jackie Gleason like?
I don't know Jackie that well. My job was just to promote him when he came from on a train, when he was moving his headquarters from California to Miami, where he was going to do the Jackie Gleason show with the music and the June Taylor dances and so forth. And what I did was put together a train that went from Union Station, Los Angeles, to Miami, with stops all along the way. And in every city that we stopped, we would put on newspaper columnists or media from, remember in those days there were only 3 television stations and 7 radio stations in the market. That was the law. And so we'd put them on at every station I put on a jazz band. And what did happen, Jackie Gleason, if you really remember, if you look at the reruns, he loved wearing vests. And he had this wonderful, wonderful car with all of his clothes. And one day, in those days, I was a lot skinnier than I am now. And I was 6 feet. And I walked in, and I'm looking, his closet was open. I'm looking in his closet. He said, "Hey, kid," he said, "do you like these vests?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What's your size?" I said, "Well, I'm a 40 regular, Mr. Gleason." He said, "Well, go over here. You can have one of my dream vests." I said, "What's a dream vest?" Well, if you remember his girth, he was a big man. His dream vest said he could fit into a 40 regular, so he gave me this reversible red with plaid on the other side vest, and I wore it for quite a while. So he was a hard-drinking, hard-playing, very magnanimous man to the people who were his friends. For example, there was I'll never forget one night we were in a place called Toots Shores, which at the time was a legendary watering hole in New York. And Jackie Gleason and Toots were always making bets like who could run around. The big guys, they were, 250, 300 pounds apiece, and they liked their food and they liked to drink. And they'd bet who could run around the corner and beat each other for silly bets. Well, one day he was in his cups, and waiter came over and he says, "Here, I'm going to give you a tip." And he says, here's $100. He said to the kid, he says, "What's the biggest tip you ever got?" He says, $100, Mr. Gleason. And Jackie says, "That's good. What's the biggest tip next to that $100? He says, $50, Mr. Gleason. "Oh, yeah? Who is the bum who gave you the $50? "Well, Mr. Gleason, it was you." He was a magnanimous guy. He loved to gamble. He loved to drink. He could write beautiful music, and he had great timing as a comedian.
He was certainly known for having that drawing personality where everyone wanted to be around him, but, like you said, known as a drinker and known as a bit of a gambler, right?
Right.
Now, I want to move to international business because you pretty much conquered the sports world and the entertainment world. You went out to international business, and you were involved with creating the plastic credit cards because people forget that it was not
that's
plastic.
Interesting. Where did you get all this information that happens to be true? That's not listed anywhere.
How
the heck, boy, Ari, you've done homework on me. I was with a company called Pilgrim Plastic Products, PPP, in Boston, Massachusetts. And I'm a young fellow. I've been married about 3 years at the time. And they did printing on plastic, like the little calendar cards that you may remember in the United States were giving out at banks for advertising, a little plastic ruler, stuff like that. And along with Billy Epstein, I don't know if Billy's still with us or not. He's a great guy. We went out and made a pick. At that time, all credit cards were either cardboard or they were a company called Addressgraph Linograph out of Natick, Massachusetts. And these were little tin holders for cardboard on the inside, and that was your credit card. And we went out to Illinois and made a deal and convinced Standard Oil of Ohio. Sohio was called, S-O-H-I-O. I'm trying to go back in my memory. I think pretty sure. And we convinced them that they needed plastic. They could do it with plastic. Came back to Boston, and Joe Epstein, Billy's father, who handled the printing presses and everything, printed the first plastic credit cards, and it was for Standard Oil of Illinois, but for some reason Ohio was involved too. Standard Oil, and those are the first credit cards, and the rest is history.
In addition to that, you became an international businessman with infomercials to Japan. So how'd you get involved with that? That's a really unique idea.
How do I know? Listen, as I said in the beginning of this conversation, I'm one of the luckiest guys. Right now, I'm sitting here, I'm 80 years old, and just recently Susan, my fiance, ran for me the only party I've ever had in my entire life, and it was a blast. It was fantastic. It was like 150 of my closest friends, and they were my closest friends. And it was a trip down memory lane, and I suddenly realized the only time I had a party before, if you want to call it a party, was my bar mitzvah down in the synagogue of Congregation of Beth Israel in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the basement. And there was myself, at the time, my 6 uncles and my dad. That made 8, and 3 men from the congregation. That made Dominion plus me. And my grandmother made, she made honey cake. My mother made kugel, and they brought in schnapps, Slivovitz, and rye whiskey. And that was the only party I ever had. So suddenly I had this party. It was like a trip down memory lane. And you're asking me questions I hadn't thought of in a long time.
Wow.
Anyway, what was the question? I got off on the wrong track.
Well, I was very curious about the Japanese infomercials.
Japan.
Yeah.
I was acting as an advisor to a lady named Katie Williams, who is, as a matter of fact, kind of a legend in the infomercial world. She was bigger than Guthrie Renker, which is a huge firm today, before they were big, called Williams International. And I had lived and worked in Japan with the Ali fights, and before that, when I was in the United States Army, I was sports director of Armed Forces Radio in Japan, and I had an awful lot of contacts, and I was acting as her consultant. She was the chairman of the board. In fact, she's getting a Life Achievement Award in about 4 weeks from what they call the Electronic Retailing Association. And with that in mind, a very nice young man came to the office by the name of Tsubohiko, Tsubohiko Kuboki, a Japanese man. At the time, he was about 35 years old, and he just started a company called Frontline. He was looking for products to go to Japan. I took immediate liking to him, and he took an immediate liking to me, and we found a product called the Abflex, which became an overnight sensation, and we were able to import it in Japan and export it from the United States. And it was a major 8-figure success. And since that time, T and I have done work on many, many products. We have new products in the pipeline right now. I don't know what's going to happen with them. Many have made it, many fail, and which reminds me, you're talking about my successes, but there have been a lot of things, never a failure, but there have been a lot of things that don't work. So anybody who thinks, or as Andy Williams would say, as I was telling my little granddaughter Jillian the other night, who's an aspiring singer, I said, you know, honey, Mr. Williams used to tell me it took only 20 years to become an overnight success. So getting back to your question about the depression, getting you back about work and so forth, there's no replacing hard work if you believe in what you have.
Absolutely, and I saw a great video that inspires me a lot. If ever I'm having a bad day, that failure is the secret to success, is it not?
Well, I've always had an attitude, and this may sound ridiculous. I always surrounded myself in my working years with people that I really felt were better than I and could do the job better than me, because I had the confidence that if they were good, they would make me look even better. And they did, and they went on to their own successes. But more importantly than that, you have to have a product you believe in. You have to people. People are the key, Ari. If you have people that you can trust and they trust you and they believe in you, there's nothing that can't be accomplished. It's just like the Israeli army. We believe in the product. We believe in what we have to do, and that's what you must do.
Well said. And a few more questions. I got to get
Go ahead. I'm going nowhere.
Well, again, it's a real pleasure and a privilege to have you on, and I want to get into the cellular technology that you were somewhat involved with, a great innovation that if in Israel, I believe it's 1 out of 4 people have cell phones. That's probably low. It's probably more 2 out of 4, or 1/2. But cell phones, obviously all over the place.
A man named Bob Block and myself formed a thing called alliances, and we were able to get a lot of people who had limited funds licenses in the cellular industry in the United States in the embryo days. And it was my belief that eventually, and this was my belief, I spoke at it at conferences some 20 years ago, that eventually the cell phone would replace the antiquated dial phone and the long line and poles. And it was true. To prove that, I went out and got licenses literally all over the world. I worked in 52 countries, Ari. And among the places I brought cellular to was the former Soviet bloc. And I secured quite a few. I had a little company called SS Technology, stood for supersonic. Anyway, so we were SST. And we were over in Russia, and I got quite a few licenses, and we were doing very, very well. And I had a company, and we spent quite a bit of money. We were building the cellular systems. In those days, it was 450 megahertz. Today, they're 800 and 900, because at that time, the military operations used 800 and 900 megahertz. And it was easy to do cellular in Russia, especially in Siberia, because the pine needles were great conductors as antennas. And so with that in mind, we went over there and we built a superstructure. We're ready to go. And then I came back to have a board of directors meeting and said, Shelley, it's time to start selling to the consumer, because you've spent, a lot of money, in the millions. I said, okay. So I went back and I took out ads in the English-speaking papers plus Pravda. And I'm sitting in my office, and people started to buy licenses to these. At that time, they were much bigger than they are today in size. I was in my office one day on the 8th floor of the Slovenska Hotel, which is next to the Kievska station, which is the North Station in Moscow. And I'm with my associate, a fellow named Milt Ganley, and all of a sudden there's a knock at 8 o'clock in the morning on my door. And two guys walk in, and they were built with no necks, and it was right out of a foreign intrigue movie. They had leather jackets, actually leather coats, and they were tied with leather belts, and they said, "Mr. Saltman." I said, "Yes." They said, "Well, we're your new partners." And I said, "You're what?" He says, "Well," he says, "we would like to be in the cellular business." I said, "Well, you're welcome." I said, and I was thinking to myself, boy, this is a way to get out of it. I've spent all this money. Maybe they can take part of the cost. I said, "Well, I can go back to my board of directors in the United States where I have partners, and we'll give a proposal. You can give us a proposal." He said, "No, you don't understand. We have a proposal." I said, "What's that?" He says, "We're your new partners." I said, "Well, you said that. What do you mean?" "You will get 10% and work for us. We give you salary, and we will own 90% and have the profits." I said, "Well, that's not fair, is it?" "Makes no difference fair. This is Russia. You want to do business? Pizza Hut is our partner. McDonald's is our partner. Baskin Robbins is our partner." I said, "Well, can I have a few days to go?" "All right, 48 hours, we'll be back." So I turned around to Milt, who had been through the wars working for the United States government. He said, "What do you think?" I said, "I think we get out of here." I said, "Wait a minute, why don't you go down the hall?" I walked down the hall. There was a nice kid named Bob Olson. Young, well, we were all young in those days, young American businessman who had brought computers and Xeroxes and faxes, machines, to hotels all over Russia. He was the first. And I said, "Bobby," and I told him what happened. He said, "Oh," he said, "that's nothing. Don't be frightened. They said the same thing to me about 7 months ago." I said, "Okay." Well, as soon as I went back to my office, it took me maybe 10 minutes to pack my bags, leave Russia, and never go back. And my board of directors understood. Segueing forward about 7 months later, I was reading the Los Angeles Times, and I picked up the front page of the paper, and it says, young Orange, his name was Paul Olson, not Bob Olson, young Orange County businessman Paul Olson cut down by unknown assailants with his bodyguards in front of his hotel.
Wow.
He called the Ramada, but it used to be the Slovenska. That was the same guy who told me, "Don't be afraid." So here, discretion was a better part of value.
Yeah, that's for sure. Wow, what a sad story, but thank God you got out of there.
It wasn't. It was a lesson. It was an object lesson. You see, in life, you find out there are many material things. But, Ari, I'm here to tell you, material things, they help, and they give you all the comforts, but they can't make you happy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's other things outside material things. The saying is the best things in life are free, right?
Well, that's not necessarily true, but, but that's a good saying.
A couple more questions. Now, when you were part of this huge invention in cellular phones and how it's going to transfer the whole world, you got to travel, like you mentioned, 52 different countries. You met a lot of world leaders and very influential and important people. Tell us some of those stories. I mean, I know it could be days of all these different tales, but any particular leader kind of stand out in your mind? And you...
Oh, they all do. They all had outstanding qualities. I'll tell you, I played tennis on a few occasions with Boris Yeltsin. He was always my partner. We never lost a point. I wonder why. Anyway, he was a big man. He had been on the national volleyball team at one point.
Wow.
But he was always shicker. But boy, he was a good athlete, and he was an interesting man. And when I was with Fox, Princess Grace was on our board. Princess Grace from Monaco, the former Grace Kelly, who had been a beautiful, beautiful actress who eventually died in a car crash all too soon. But I was her guest at the palace on a couple of occasions. She was warm and very, very nice. And probably, the man I liked the most of people in politics, of course, was my Uncle Tip, who is number one. But the man I enjoyed most in the United States in politics was my late friend Jack Kemp. Jack ran for vice president under
Bob
Robert Dole.
Yeah.
But he himself would have been he was a great athlete.
Right.
Came out of Occidental College by way of Fairfax High School, which at the time was literally a Jewish high school. He used to call them. In fact, he told me that one of the ways he worked his way through school, he was the Shabbos Goy. No, he was. That's exactly right. He had a lot of Jewish friends whose mothers and family were Orthodox, and he would go over and he'd put on the lights and light the fire and everything else on the weekend. But there have been a lot of people. But you know what I found, though? Even with the leaders, small, big, world, well, look at right now. There's a man that's helping Israel out. Was my boyhood friend, Sheldon Adelson.
Right.
He's become a very powerful man, and he's done very well, and I know his strength and his desires to help Israel are very, very strong. And, you know, he's done a lot of things with the Holocaust Museum here in Washington and in Boston. And in addition, he has been very big in what is known as the Birthright expedition. Are you familiar with the Birthright when it comes to Jewish kids in relation to Israel?
Absolutely. I went on Birthright about 10 years ago.
Oh, you went on Birthright,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I
big
have two
beneficiary.
granddaughters who are thinking of it right now, and we have a son and his wife who might be doing Aliyah. So, you know, Israel is very, very important in our life.
Those are 10 of the greatest days of my life. I still have very fond memories of it. So Birthright's a
Unfortunately,
wonderful.
it's only 10 days, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Now,
Well,
let me ask you a question. What made you finally emigrate to Israel?
Well, it's something I want to do for a long time. Birthright certainly had an impact on that decision. Also, I went with my family when I was 15. I was here for a month and really, really loved it. And my family actually lives here now, thank God. So it was just...
that's nice.
Yeah, very, very
Now, you
fortunate.
have brothers or sisters back in the United States?
No, all my family is here. My brother lives here.
Mazel tov. That's good.
Yeah.
Reminds me of a story, Ari,
Sure.
if you have a moment.
Yeah, of course.
So this little old man would go to the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, and for like 60 years he would pray. For 60 years he would pray. Finally, CNN heard about him here in the United States. Said, this is amazing. This is amazing. They'd go to him, let's see if we can interview him. So they'd go to him and say, he was sure enough, they watched him, and there he was. He's davening, puts on the tefillin, and he davens in the morning, he davens at night, and finally Wolf Blitzer, the announcer, goes over to him, and he said, sir, can I talk to you? And he says, yes, certainly can. He says, well, sir, what is your name? He says, my name is Marvin Shapiro. Well, Mr. Shapiro, is it true that for over 60 years you have been praying at the Wailing Wall? He says, absolutely. He said, well, what do you pray for? He says, well, I pray for peace among the Arabs and the Jews. I pray for health for my family. I pray for growth. He says, after 65 years, what have you learned? He said, well, I've been praying to a wall. But you know something? If I pray long enough, I may see that wall move. So that's my motto, optimism.
Absolutely. And was there a particular characteristic or characteristics you knew or you saw between all the leaders that maybe they were all optimistic or they were all hardworking or persevered? What were some of the similarities that you noticed between these world leaders?
Egomania.
Egomania, okay.
No, seriously. Part of what drives all of them is their belief in themselves. Now, egomania can be good. It can be bad if controlled. But they have to believe in yourself. Just as to be happy in life, you have to like yourself before you can like anybody else.
It's been a huge honor and a pleasure to have you on. I can't thank you enough for being on. Anytime you want to come on, you're more than welcome to. It's been a true honor to have Mr. Shelley Solomon on Israel Sports Radio tonight.
Ari, finally, may I say a big gesund and shalom.
Amen. Be well and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was Mr. Shelley Saltman, and we certainly appreciate him coming on Louis Live tonight on IsraelSportsRadio.com. Great stuff. We'll take a commercial break. Be back with your calls after this.
Offering the best of Israel at the best price, Shalom Israel Tours and help you make your next trip to Israel the adventure of a lifetime. Shalom Israel Tours will customize the trip to Israel for your family or group. Specializing in bar mitzvah packages, outdoor adventure vacations, wine tours, and more, Shalom Israel Tours is sure to inspire. So whether you're looking for a customized trip, a day tour, or a car rental, Shalom Israel Tours is here to help. Email us at inspire@shalomisraeltours.com or click the banner on the Israel Sports Radio homepage, and soon you will find yourself in Israel. That's Shalom Israel Tours, www.shalomisraeltours.com.
Are you ready to get serious about your health and fitness? iFit trainers provide one-on-one personal training and put together the best fitness program to get the right results for you. Find your I in Fit. We offer certified personal trainers with elite athletic experience and flexible hours at the convenience of your own home. Classes are offered in English and in Hebrew. We serve Jerusalem and the surrounding areas. For more information and to schedule your first workout session, call Alyssa at 054-759-7280 or email Alyssa, ELISSA, at i-fit.co.il. Visit us at www.i-fit.co.il or click on the iFit banner on the Israel Sports Radio homepage.
Feeling overwhelmed with all you have to do? Let your personal shopper help. Chani is an experienced gift shopper and can help free up your day. Chani can assist you in finding the perfect gift for your upcoming simchas or pick up those light items at the grocery. And don't forget, if you are in the area of the Israel Center on Karen HaYesod, stop by on Monday or Tuesday between 8:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. to check out all the great gifts Chani has to offer. For more information, call 02-654-2155 or email chani@netvision.net.il. Don't forget to check out her great website at www.chanisgifts.com.
Back here on Louis Live, our special thanks to Mr. Shelley Saltman. We're now going into phone calls for the final hour on the program. From Israel, 02-563-1492, and from the Old Country, 301-850-2484. And it looks like we do have a caller. Caller, you there?
Yes, here I am.
Caller, what's your name and where you Go ahead.
Radio Mike, calling from hurricaned Kew Garden Hills in New York.
Yeah, absolutely. We keep hearing about Hurricane Irene, and the saying goes, when they'll have no fury like a woman's scorn, right?
It's been a real experience. It's really been bad. They did prepare the city for it quite well. They shut down all the subways, the buses, the airports, and sure enough, it did come Saturday night, and all Saturday night till about, I would say, about 9, 10 o'clock Sunday morning. And right now it's cloudy out and very windy, but at least the rain has stopped, at least temporarily.
Now, talk about the prevention that the government seems to be somewhat on top of. What are some of the things they've been doing to make this not as disastrous as it certainly could be?
Well, they did evacuate all the areas near the oceans, all of Far Rockaway and hospitals. A lot of them were evacuated. They did call out the National Guard. President Obama declared New York, New Jersey, I believe Connecticut, disaster areas. And people, I think, got the message, to take it easy and not do anything too foolish.
Absolutely, and that's a great thing that they did take it seriously, because we've seen in the past some of the stuff, they ignore government warnings, they ignore what the police tell them to do in those instructions. So thank God that a lot of people evacuated and go to safe places. Now, how much longer do they expect this hurricane to last for?
Well, I believe right now it's heading up to the Massachusetts area. It's going up north. New York is more or less out of it. I mean, we don't have, believe it or not, we don't have a subway system yet or buses, and maybe not even for tomorrow.
Wow.
The Long Island Railroad is out of service. Amtrak, the airports, as far as I know, are completely shut down. It's been pretty eerie here, and even this morning, when the Ida storm hit through New York City, it wasn't actually that bad, but the damage was done before with all the rain, and right now it's just very windy out, but it's just raining a little bit, and it could have been a lot worse, and thank God. It shows that there's a pilot in the world that controls the world without our saying so.
Absolutely, because whatever you're doing, whatever you're involved with, hurricane can just take it out like that, no matter who you are. And it's really, really incredible on one hand. It's scary, but also incredible to just see that power that can go.
And also last week there was, you might know there was an earthquake about 90 miles from Washington, D.C. in Virginia. And that earthquake, believe it or not, was felt as far as Boston.
Wow.
Hundreds of miles away. And it was scary. We had two major events in 1 week. So, if a person wants to sit back and say this is just Mother Nature, fine. Or you could say that this maybe there's someone in charge of the world, and we have to obey there's a God up there, and maybe he's trying to tell us some sort of a message.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the way I tend to perceive and interpret, obviously. Now, I was speaking with a New Yorker last night that said this hurricane could have been as bad as one in the late 90s. The name escapes me. Do you know the one he was talking about? There was one that lasted about 12 days in the late 90s.
Well, no, there was no hurricane that lasted 12 days. If there's a hurricane that would last 12 days, it would be totally annihilated. I don't think it was Andrew, because that was mainly in Florida, but or maybe it was Gloria.
Gloria, yes.
It could have been Gloria. And it depends where you are. I mean, like there are a lot of roads are flooded here, and if a tree falls in your house or in your car, it's a major catastrophe. If it doesn't, then you escaped more or less scot-free.
Now,
and there was, I will tell you, there was another earthquake also on Thursday, but that happened at Yankee Stadium, of course.
Right. So I wanted to, actually, before I get to the sports angle, everyone in your family, though, is safe?
Yeah, thank God everyone's okay.
All right, Baruch Hashem for that. I'll go into the sports angle because some of the sports teams have obviously been affected by this, and my understanding some of the games may be postponed or changed around. What is the news on that?
Well, what happened was the Yankees played one game on Friday. They really wanted to play a doubleheader on Friday. They got rained out on Saturday. They're playing a doubleheader today. One game only tomorrow against Baltimore again. They just lost against Baltimore today, so now Boston's up by 2.5 games over them. And so they wanted to play really 2 games Friday, none on Saturday, and 2 games today, 1 game tomorrow, but they can't do that. Now they have to come back on a day off. September 8th, they have to make a special trip to Baltimore to make up one of the games.
Okay, so, and that is not, they have to go out of their schedule to do that, right? It's not in the plans to go to Baltimore.
Yeah, it was their day off, and there aren't too many days off in September, and they have a bunch of double headers already. So that's a little bit of a mess. But one of the things that happened in Baltimore, also, I believe it was on Thursday, or maybe it was Wednesday night, their ex-announcer and star pitcher, Mike Flanagan, apparently committed suicide.
Yes.
That was one of the reasons they wanted to have some sort of a memorial for him Friday night. They didn't feel like playing 2 games. So that's what happened.
The story, we had Jim Williams on, of course, Thursday. He is involved in the Washington, D.C. area, writes for the Washington Examiner, and knew him for a long time. And one of the most liked broadcasters out there, known as a pretty happy guy, so very shocking that it did happen. Now, I understand that there was the earthquake that happened near D.C. Did that have an effect on the Nationals at all?
I don't really know, because the Nationals, no one really pays attention to them. So,
Radio Mike.
Nobody would really know whether it had an effect or not.
Oh, God. Goodness gracious, Radio Mike. We're getting hate mail from Washington, D.C. right now. I think the president's on line 2. He's upset with us.
Okay.
What about now, because we're right in the major heat of the pennant race between the Yankees and the Red Sox, and I know you're a huge baseball fan. Real quick curveball question. Hurricane have any effect on the Giants or the Jets that you know of?
Well, yeah, they were supposed to play, first, it was kind of interesting. They were supposed to play Saturday night, and that game was on for like 8 o'clock Saturday night. Then they changed it from Saturday night 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock. And it really didn't start. didn't really hit the area over here till about, I'd say till about 9, 10 o'clock. So they certainly really could have played at 2 o'clock. But I guess because they shut down all the transit systems, the subways, the buses, all the links to get to the Meadowlands from New Jersey, so they decided not even to play the game 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. So instead they're playing now Monday night. Hopefully things will be more or less back to normal with the Jet-Giant game for that.
Okay, so there is the report on the football teams in New York for our football fans listening to Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com. Getting into the pennant race as far as sports, just sticking with sports playing on the field outside of hurricane weather conditions. Alex Rodriguez coming back. Now, the Yankees played great without him. How is A-Rod? Is A-Rod going to basically, I'll just put it out there, cause problems for the Yankees? He has a lot of chemistry issues. A lot of players don't like playing with him. Will he be detrimental to the New York Yankees?
You know, if you want to make a case against Alex Rodriguez, you really could, because since he's come back, they really haven't performed very well. They lost 2 out of 3 against Oakland. They did finally come back in the one game against Oakland when they hit the 3 grand slams.
Right.
You know, they lost 2 games in a row to Baltimore. Tampa Bay keeps on winning, so a very, very comfortable lead. If the Yankees lose their second game of the day-night doubleheader tonight against Baltimore, I believe the lead will be down to something like 6 games, you know, from a very comfortable 9 games before. So it's getting a little bit closer right now.
A-Rod, throughout his career, the pattern has been set. It's known that when he leaves the team gets better, and the team he goes to seems to get worse. The Mariners won 116 games the year after he left. The Tigers were competing for a division title after he left. And the Yankees, who had went to the World Series in 2003, get Alex Rodriguez. They don't go back to the World Series until 2009. There is something weird there. You figure a guy that hits 57 home runs a year helps the ball club. It's something really, really strange with Alex Rodriguez. And right now, 2 games around the Red Sox.
I might have to take exception with you, what you're saying. You know, you might have a point, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe Seattle did win. Seattle
was in the ALCS the year before with him. That is true. And then in 2001, they're in the ALCS. So from the playoffs, they actually didn't improve. That is correct.
No, but I believe Seattle did have Alex when they won the 116 games. I believe. No, they didn't.
That was 2001. He was with the Rangers then.
Oh, he was already with the Rangers?
Yeah, 2000 was his last year. And one of the funny things about that story, Jeff Kent, because he had a big feud with Barry Bonds, obviously, and he was Barry Bonds was a free agent after 2001, and he had 73 home runs that year, of course. And they asked Jeff Kent, what do you think about Barry maybe leaving the team? And he said, see Seattle Mariners. I mean, the team would be better without Barry Bonds, just like the Mariners are better without Alex Rodriguez. At this point, Red Sox have a 2-game lead in the East. What do you think, Radio Mike, at this point? How confident are you in the New York Yankees winning the East?
Well, you know, they have a very big 3-game series coming up right now in Boston.
Right.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we got CC Sabathia, who hasn't beaten Boston yet this year. He's 0-4.
Yes, he is. With the ERA over 7, by the way.
Yeah,
just in case you didn't know.
Hughes, who was horrible the last game against Oakland, who was only bailed out by those 3 grand slams that you don't really want to talk about that the Yankees hit. and then we also have Burnett, who's been simply a total catastrophe. So, so it's and then we're going now. Boston is not playing today, so they're going to be really, really rested. Going into the Yankee series, and they have only Lackey, Lester, and Beckett going against 3 question marks with the Yankees. But if the Yankees take 2 out of 3 from Boston, and even though the Yankees have lost almost all the games except for 2 games this year against Boston, if we take 2 out of 3 in Boston, or we sweep Boston, all those wins that Boston had will all be forgotten. If we lose all 3 games, and Tampa Bay keeps on winning, and maybe the Angels keep on winning, some of these Yankee fans are going to get very close to jumping off a ledge.
All right, Radio Mike, last question before we let you go. The Yankees, as you mentioned, on accident, of course, 3-4 times that they hit the 3 grand slams of the ball game, and I believe scored 26 runs. Is that correct? 27?
I think it was No, I believe it was 22-9.
22-9.
We would have not had the three. If we wouldn't have had the Grand Slams, we would have won only 10-9. Right.
Oh, great. It spoke like a true Yankees fan. Radio Mike, the 3 Grand Slams of one ball game, where does it rank in Yankee accomplishment and Yankee lore?
I think it was just fun that they did it. I'm really surprised that in all of baseball that no team ever did that, really, because, I mean, we're talking about thousands and thousands of games.
True.
And some terrific teams. I'm really surprised that was actually the record, and I believe that no Yankee team did it in New York since, 1936, 2 Grand Slams in a year. It goes up there. It was somewhat of a, even though it was a nice win after losing 2 to Oakland, very frustrating losses, it was nice to win, but it didn't really mean much because it wasn't a crucial game, so I wouldn't really rate it very high. It was fun. It's nice to happen, but it wasn't a big deal.
Okay, and appreciate that honesty, obviously, from Radio Mike, keeping it real about his New York Yankees. Radio Mike, thanks so much for calling in tonight on Louis Live.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good one. Radio Mike, everyone, appreciate him calling in. That leaves a line open if you want to join me. You could do so from the old country, 301-850-2484, and from the Holy Land, 02563-1492. We'll be taking calls the rest of the way here on Louis Live till midnight, and you'll feel free to talk about whatever you like. Obviously, the NFL preseason is in full effect. Major League Baseball is in a great pennant race as well. Looks like we have a phone caller. Caller, are you there?
It's Cali Dave. What's going on, Ari?
Cali Dave, it is a pleasure to have you on, and I got to tell you, I have a funny feeling you might be talking smack about what your Chargers did to my Cardinals.
Yeah, you know what? It was what our backups did to your backup, so really not too much relevance in that sort of game, but it's always nice to see the Chargers getting a W this time over the Cardinals. But you got to be happy with what you saw out of Coleman Fitzgerald. I think they had a connection for like a 80-yard touchdown. So pretty decent outcome for Cardinals fans, I think.
Absolutely, because in the preseason, the only game that really counts is the third week, I believe. That's when most players play the 3 quarters. It might be week 4 when they play the 3 quarters. At this point, starters generally play 1 quarter. I like the movement. That, to me, is the deal winner, the deal breaker in the West, is that we have the best quarterback in that god-awful division. And, by the way, you have the best quarterback in your division.
Yeah, by far. Hopefully we can get our special teams to come around and be somewhere in the middle of the league, and we should be pretty dangerous. But tell you what, I need to give a special shout-out to some special people out in San Diego. My mom and dad listening for the first time to Israel Sports Radio, and you're now in California, and we're gonna start spreading the word of Israel Sports Radio in Southern California. So new listeners, mom and dad, love you guys. Enjoy the sunshine out there on the West Coast.
Wow, that's great. We certainly are happy Cali Dave's parents are aboard on Louis Live. Cali Dave, what else did you see in this football weekend? What stands out in your mind?
One of the big signings, Kerry Collins, gets a deal with the Colts for 2 years, $14 million, and for a guy that age, he must be counting his lucky stars that he got a contract like that. I mean, I gotta believe that he's done. But Colts need some insurance. Peyton Manning's future is uncertain. Will he come back? Will he be ready for opening weekend? That's the big question on all Indianapolis Colts fans' minds and fantasy owners' minds. Do you draft Peyton Manning in your fantasy draft if you're unsure if he's gonna be there? He's normally consistently a first rounder in all fantasy drafts. It looks like he could be falling out. So, Kerry Collins to the Colts for 2 years, $14 million, guaranteed $4 million this season. I think that's good for Colts. I think he'll fit into that system, but it's not going to be the savior that everyone thinks. Coming into a new team, got to learn the playbook. Even for a veteran quarterback, it's a big amount to bite off to try to come in a week before the season starts, 2 weeks before the season starts, and start for a team in the NFL these days. So, will Kerry Collins be successful in Indy? Can he win a couple of games, or will Peyton Manning be back? That's really the big question.
Peyton Manning, of course, has not missed a ball game since he was drafted number 1 overall in 1998, 35 years old at this point. Coming off neck surgery, it is up in the air, but the streak is there for him to take, potentially from Brett Favre. He would have to play until about 42, but it currently has the longest active streak in the NFL. Kerry Collins going to the Colts, like you mentioned. Reggie Wayne called him out and said that our offense is not vanilla. Criticized Collins, wasn't sure if he was equipped mentally to handle the offense. What do you think of Reggie Wayne's comments?
I like him. I think that it's going to serve to fire up there's going to have to be some sort of fire lit under Kerry Collins, because in my opinion, guy that's been around that long, you got to question whether he's coming into camp with the mentality of, you know what, let's win a Super Bowl. I don't necessarily see him having that mentality. More, let's just get by, let's try to win a game or two, which, if I'm a Colts fan, I'm fine with. You're just filling in until Peyton Manning gets back, but, Reggie Wayne's comments can be construed as kind of negative, but at the same time, I think it'll serve to fire up Kerry Collins.
All right, my friend, what else did you see in this weekend that you liked?
Well, I'll tell you something that kind of, came back to the question of the preseason. Is it worth it? Should it be, cut down to 2 games? Some big injuries here in the preseason. Wes Welker for the Patriots hurts his neck. They say it's, he's going to be okay. He's going to be ready to go starting the season, but, very potential to be a huge injury. He's coming in for a game that really means nothing, has no actual outcome on the season, and he hurts his neck. That could have easily been something a lot more serious. Arian Foster, he's a star player for the Texans. He's someone that without, the Texans without him are really not winning more than 4 or 5 games. With him, they're playoff contenders. He hurt his hamstring in the victory at San Francisco this weekend. He also seems that he'll be ready to go opening day. But, the question is, do we need these 4 preseason games? Let's say Foster doesn't just aggravate the hamstring. He tears an ACL or some sort of injury like that. What happens to your franchise then and, essentially in a meaningless game?
Arian Foster, we had Ari Bluestein on, who is our Philadelphia insider, thought Foster could go number 1 in the fantasy picks. I'm not sure if you read. A lot of people have Adrian Peterson, but it sounds like him or Arian Foster 1 in 1A. And the fact that he could be out, or like you mentioned, Wes Welker in the Super Bowl in Arizona, the Super Bowl 42, when the Patriots are about to go 19-0, woulda, coulda, shoulda, but had the Patriots won that game, Wes Welker would have been the MVP. He dominated against the Giants, running all over the place. Great, important player for the Patriots. I've always been of the opinion, and I advocate that the NFL preseason is too long. If you look at mathematically, the percentage of preseason games compared to regular season games is by far the highest of any sport. And the NBA, I believe they play 10 preseason games approximately, and they have 82 regular season games. That is a proper ratio. That means the NFL really should go to 2 games, 3 at the maximum, but it is too much right now. I agree with that. But
look at this. Byron Leftwich, backup for Roethlisberger on the Steelers. Yeah, he's only a backup QB. Breaks his arm. He's out for the season. He breaks his arm here in a preseason game on Saturday night. Now you're without a solid backup. You know what I mean? You're going to, I don't even know who's the third-string quarterback for the Steelers, but what happens if Roethlisberger goes down now? Steelers are, now perennial Super Bowl contenders, and if Roethlisberger goes down, instead of having a nice veteran like Leftwich in there who can lead a team like the Steelers, you're going to get some third-string, practice squad players. So, definitely I would advocate seeing the regular season extended, and from there, hopefully the preseason can be lowered to 2 games. I think that would be effective.
I think the biggest problem that the NFL has is that in preseason games, I'm not sure everybody goes full blast, and you're always more likely to create an injury or cause an injury if you're not going full blast. That's just known in football. You can't play it halfway like you can in a baseball game or in a basketball game. You have to play full blast, and if this is your first game in 6 months and you're playing full blast, you could get injured, and then if you don't play full blast, you're probably more likely to get injured. So there has to be some way. I don't know how you would do this. I honestly don't know, but some way to kind of have a halfway place to play, get more comfortable, maybe a scrimmage type of game. I'm not sure how they could set this up, and then go to proper preseason games, 2, like you mentioned, and then the regular season. They have to do something about this. There's too much money invested in these players. Byron Leftwich, that's a whole year of his career gone because of injury in a preseason game. And I believe that if this game was week 4 of the regular season, it wouldn't have happened. He would have been more warmed up, more prepared, body more prepared for football. Everyone would have played in full blast. I don't think it would have happened had this been in week 4, week 5 of the regular season.
This year though, definitely a special case. Shortened training camps.
Yeah.
Shortened off season, no group workouts, no access to facilities. So players are definitely, regardless of what they say, we're training on our own. They're coming in not in football shape like they would normally. Now, I think what we have to take into account here is that future seasons coming ahead, I think that they're definitely going to have to do something about the preseason and the camps. They're going to have to extend it, allow for more player interaction at team facilities in the off season, and then come in, cut the preseason into 2 games and have your teams scrimmage against themselves, but more full pad, full contact. Right now, I think that they had 2 weeks before the first preseason game to have practices, to get their offense down, to run full contact drills. That needs to be at least a month and a half. So that's going to be something the NFL can do, definitely. But I'm getting excited. Football's coming up. I know that all the sports fans out there listening have got to be itching, looking for some football, and it should be a great season. It's the best sport in America. Nothing compares to it. Really, when it comes to the appeal to the sports fans, excitement of the game, overall, just the consistency of it. There's nothing like football. I really don't believe that anything can compare.
I agree with that 100%. It's the the most popular sport in the United States. Week to week, there's something exciting, so everyone is involved all the time. In baseball, you don't have to pay attention for a couple months if you don't feel like it. We all love baseball, but it's not the same as the NFL. What do you think about Terrell Pryor? Obviously, huge fan, Callie Dave. No, I'm kidding. He signs with the Raiders for 4 years. They don't want him to wear number 2 because of the Jamarcus Russell curse. Is that a cute little thing in Oakland, or do you put some type of stock in that thought?
Oh, wow, this is the first I've heard of it. But coming from the Raiders, I'm not surprised. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be surprised to learn that they, do some sort of ritualistic pirate ship burning where they do a banshee dance at midfield in Raiders Stadium and, scream like banshees and squirt each other with mayonnaise. As far as I'm concerned, those are things the Raiders very likely are doing right now. But honestly, who cares about it? He's going to wear number 2. It's not going to matter. He's not going to be successful in the NFL. But is there something to it? Who knows? What do you think?
Well, hold on. First of all, tell me what you really think about the Raiders. That's no joke in there. They do stuff like that with numbers. Athletes are really superstitious, especially their numbers. There was a thing with the New York Yankees that they brought in Mickey Mantle for the first time as a 19-year-old. They gave him number 6 because, of course, Ruth 3, DiMaggio 4, Garrick 4, DiMaggio 5, and that put a lot of pressure on him. He went to the minors. When he came back, they gave him number 7. They didn't want to remind him of his past. So there is something there. I'm more intrigued for some reason. They are not releasing how much money he is getting. They just said he signed for 4 years. That is really, really curious to me because this is a guy that, a Heisman candidate, and you figure he's making something. But it was the supplemental draft, so it might not be as much as expected. Callie Dave, I want to know, I know this is preseason, but Tom Terrific is outdueled by the Detroit Lions. What do you think about that? Or is this preseason doesn't matter?
It's a little bit of foreshadowing about some changing trends in the NFL. I think that that the teams that have been kind of perennial losers, in this case, Falcons obviously, they had a long history of being a horrible team. They're one of those teams that have kind of come up in the past few years. I'm talking about the Lions, the Cardinals, and we could see the Rams do this potentially in a few years, but Lions have built solid defense. They've got some stars on offense. They got a good quarterback in Stafford. So I do expect them to contend every week with top teams, and I think that they can steal some games from Green Bay, and they can come up and they can beat the Bears twice this season. So, you know what? Not really surprised. And, preseason really, like I said before, doesn't mean anything, but could be a little bit of foreshadowing here of what's to come this season. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Lions make the playoffs. I don't see them necessarily winning a game in the playoffs. Don't know if they are quite at that level, but I definitely see them getting there this year. It brings me to like Atlanta, kind of same sort of situation. Atlanta built their defense. They got some solid players on offense. Matt Ryan, kind of like Stafford, kind of coming up. They were hot. They were the team, last year, 13 straight wins. Matty Ice coming in and winning 17 straight at home. So this year, no one's talking about the Falcons. You know what I mean? They're Michael Turner, kind of getting old. He's probably going to be dropping out. He's in his 30s now. Running backs, as you know, limited shelf life. But it's really interesting to see the ebb and flow of the NFL power. Question is, will the Pats stay in contention like always, or is there a changing of the guard?
Well, the Lions are my sleeper pick. I have not made any official picks at this point, but unofficially I have the Detroit Lions making the playoffs. Something about last season, they were very, very close to winning a couple of ball games. I think the Bears are out of it. I think that Jay Cutler's situation is going to haunt them coming up next year. The Detroit Lions, you see Stafford, I know it's a preseason game, but only in one half throws for 200 yards. So there's something to be said about that. And they look impressive over the New England Patriots.
So where do they come in then? If they're coming, they're winning a wild card spot, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's what I think what will happen. I think Green Bay will win the division. Callie, Dave, we got to go, but thanks so much for calling in tonight on Louis Live.
All right, thank you so much. Pleasure as always. We'll talk again next week. Absolutely.
Appreciate Callie, Dave calling. And again, if you want to join the program, from the Holy Land, 02-563-1492, and in the Old Country, 301-850-2484. Looks like we have a caller. Call, you there? Okay, we do not. Try to call back when you get a chance. I'll tell you, let's take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back after this.
Are you having computer issues? You just got to try these guys. Tiger Computer Services, 050-708-1599. All of Jerusalem is talking about them. They're super experienced, efficient, reliable, and honest. Their lead technician has over 20 years experience and holds a BS in computer science from a top American university. Mickey from Macavia says, I won't let anybody touch my computers except for Tiger. So call Tiger Computer Services, 050-708-1599. Believe me, you'll be happy that you did. Ruben from Baca says, I've had many technicians in the past, and these guys are some of the best I've seen. Laptops, desktops, netbooks, Macintoshes, iPods, iPhones. All hardware and software problems, advice, and instruction. The next time you need a very experienced and honest computer technician, call Tiger Computer Services at 050-708-1599. Mention Israel Sports Radio for a 15% discount for all new customers.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com. This is Dimitri Salita, and you're listening to IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Broadcasting live from Jerusalem. IsraelSportsRadio.com. Building love of Israel, one sports fan at a time. IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Louis Live, and if you want to join us from the Holy Land, 02-563-1492, and from the Old Country, 301-850-2484. And it looks like we have a caller. Caller, are you there?
I am here.
That's, of course,
How are you?
Sounds like Andy from the East Coast. Andy, you're still alive. That's good to hear with all the hurricanes going on.
Well, Irene was, she was all right.
You know, what they say about Irene, there's a saying, of course, hell have no fury like a woman scorned. So Irene, just the typical woman, right?
I guess, we didn't have much personally. Our power stayed on. We had a couple of downed trees in the area, but, other than that, it was good. We were all right.
And it's passed through. Where is it at this point? Radio Mike told me is it near Boston at this point?
It's near Boston, yes. So that's why the Red Sox played a doubleheader yesterday in anticipation of the storm today, which they did sweep, by the way, just for the record.
Yes, you got into a little bit with our good friend Bruce Jacobs. Andy, why do you like to tease the man so much?
Because he's a legend. And
He is.
When someone pitches me a softball, you just got to go for it.
Yeah, just for the real quick for the fans who don't know, and I was shocked Bruce set Andy up so easily, but on Bruce's Facebook, Bruce had a couple of great jokes. One of his jokes, of course, was, if you ever doubted the power prestige of the East Coast, let this be your reminder. No rainstorm combined with some heavy wind has ever gotten this much coverage. Andy Gershman then made a comment about Rex Ryan. There is a blowhard named Rex that's gotten far more attention doing less. So, again, you always got to pick on Rex Ryan, don't you, Andy?
Right. I hate to go back, but it all ties to sports somehow. The opening weekend, of course, this year of the NFL is 9/11, 10-year anniversary.
Yes.
If you notice, someone did make a comment on there that if you question the power of the East Coast, during 9/11, no place was hit in the West Coast because no one cares. So it is all about the East Coast.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, of course, we had this argument several times, this issue, I should say, when you were in Israel.
No, it was an argument. It was an argument when I used to refer to America as the East Coast.
Right, when you say in America...
For some reason being from
Phoenix, yeah, the issue. When you say, hey, in America it's noon right now, and I say, no, Andy, that's on the East Coast, it's noon. There are other places in the United States.
Ari Louis, last week we heard on air your fame in Wisconsin, I believe it was.
Yes, from Mr. Dorff.
Right. Well, last week I was in a kosher supermarket here in Silver Spring, Maryland. I saw our old friend Eddie. I don't know if you remember Eddie, the pizza guy from Kraft Family Stadium.
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely.
So Eddie is the manager of the kosher store here, one of them. And I said, you missed a great year with your Judean Rebels. And he said, yeah, well, I got to listen to it on the radio.
And he refers, of course, to Israel Sports Radio.
Of course. And I said, well, that was Ari and I. So, you've got your props in Wisconsin, your props in Silver Spring. You're all over the road, Ari Louis.
And then, of course, Louis Live, very happy to interview Shelly Saltman. I'm not sure if he caught the interview. Totally fascinating man, been all over the place. I did more research that was just outside of sports. He was involved with bringing infomercials to Japan, created the first plastic credit card, and was involved with the Jackie Gleason show. Not bad, pretty good career there.
Yeah, a legend in his own time, that's for sure. Quite impressive, but another large guest on Louis Live.
Yes, and the station is very happy to have him. Now
I gotta run in 1 second, but
sure.
I wanted to clarify something. Did I see a posting that Goal was returning to the airwaves?
That's correct. Goal will be on a week from this Wednesday. I am giving up my hour of Louis Live from 10 to 11, so it'll be Goal from 10 to 11, and, of course, the great Nettie Feldman from 11 to 1.
So, and Ari Louis Live will not be on Wednesdays, is that correct?
That's correct. I've given up the show for the Goal guys. We know how important soccer is. I'm making a sacrifice.
Oh, soccer is important. By the way, a big win for Manchester United today.
Really?
Huge.
Yeah.
Yes, I knew you did.
Yeah.
Tottenham got crushed yesterday, by the way.
Tottenham still always will hold a special place in my heart, even though I haven't talked about it in about a year and a half. But when we did that thing from Daniel from Israel Transfer, and I liked their name because they had ham in it. I thought it was funny.
Right, and yet they go by the nickname of the Yid Army. So
when I thought, God, that's just a weird coincidence right there that I picked it because of ham and got the Yid Army. Oh, speaking of, well, I know that's not really a coincidence, but when I posted this about Mr. Saltman being on, Dimitri Salita clicked like on my Facebook wall 2 different times. So because he's been involved with
I noticed that.
He was involved in boxing pretty heavily with Ali Frazier. Almost set up Wilt Chamberlain fight as well, but Wilt backed out at the last moment.
Right, exactly.
So good stuff.
Huge guest, and congratulations to you. Congratulations to, and will Mark Gordon be joining the boys for Goal?
So it's actually be Mark Gordon and Chopper, and we're working on getting the ref involved. But right now it's just Mark Gordon and the Chopper. So the ref, if you're listening, we want you back on the station. Please come back. Yes.
Wait, so the ref is Tony?
Yeah, Tony Lipsy. So it's
interesting.
David Harris and Mark Gordon.
Wow. That is a huge lineup. Congratulations to you, and sorry we missed Jess and the Mess today.
Jess, I like that name.
That show will from now on forever be called.
You know, Hastings is actually very busy. He's on his little book tour. Tuesday night he's having a book signing right by the Tachla Merkazit. I've been invited, so I gotta go. And he gave me a copy of his book. It's a children's book. It's got nice pictures. It's really pretty. But what I should tell him is,
congratulations to him.
I watched this 60 Minutes. You know, of course, I'm very much into mafia movies and that kind of stuff. John Gotti Jr. was on 60 Minutes about a year ago, and I keep watching on YouTube. And at the end of the 60 Minutes interview, after he's talking about this and that, you know, all these things, then he mentioned that he made a children's book also. So I'm going to tell Hastings that. Hastings can't think he's a sweetheart just because he's making a children's book.
Interesting.
I'm teasing, of course.
Right.
Hastings is a good guy.
Hey, have a good one. Be well, and I'll talk to you sometime during the week.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Andy.
All right, have a good one.
You too. That was Andy calling in from the East Coast. We're going to take a commercial break because we're behind just a tad. Just a tad. I think we went 57 minutes without taking a commercial. Some type of new record. We'll take a break and be back after this.
Offering the best of Israel at the best price, Shalom Israel Tours can help you make your next trip to Israel the adventure of a lifetime. Shalom Israel Tours will customize a trip to Israel for your family or group. Specializing in bar mitzvah packages, outdoor adventure vacations, wine tours, and more, Shalom Israel Tours is sure to inspire. So whether you're looking for a customized trip, a day tour, or a car rental, Shalom Israel Tours is here to help. Email us at inspire@shalomisraeltours.com or click the banner on the Israel Sports Radio homepage, and soon you will find yourself in Israel. That's Shalom Israel Tours, www.shalomisraeltours.com.
Are you ready to get serious about your health and fitness? iFit trainers provide one-on-one personal training and put together the best fitness program to get the right results for you. Find your I in Fit. We offer certified personal trainers with elite athletic experience and flexible hours at the convenience of your own home. Classes are offered in English and in Hebrew. We serve Jerusalem and the surrounding areas. For more information and to schedule your first workout session, call Alyssa at 054-759-7280 or email Alyssa, ELISSA, at i-fit.co.il. Visit us at www.i-fit.co.il or click on the iFit banner on the Israel Sports Radio homepage.
Feeling overwhelmed with all you have to do? Let your personal shopper help. Chani is an experienced gift shopper and can help free up your day. Chani can assist you in finding the perfect gift for your upcoming simchas or pick up those light items at the grocery. And don't forget, if you are in the area of the Israel Center on Karen HaYesod, stop by on Monday or Tuesday between 8:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. to check out all the great gifts Chani has to offer. For more information, call 02-654-2155 or email chani@netvision.net.il. Don't forget to check out her great website at www.chanisgifts.com.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Schutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Terry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248 or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Back here on Louis Live, we were mentioning the Terrell Pryor deal, 4 years with the Oakland Raiders. Let's play a clip. We thank our friends, the Associated Press, for helping us out.
Terrell Pryor has his first NFL contract, accepting a 4-year deal with the Raiders just 3 days after being taken in the third round of the supplemental draft. He can practice with the team during preseason and play in exhibition games, but he'll be ineligible to work out with the team while he serves the season-opening 5-game suspension. That suspension was handed down by Commissioner Roger Goodell for the same number of games he would have sat out had he returned to Ohio State. Pryor has said he will not appeal the suspension. He gave up his final season with the Buckeyes after an investigation into the team's memorabilia for cash scandal that cost coach Jim Tressel his job. Pryor is coming off his best season statistically at Ohio State, throwing for over 2,700 yards and 27 touchdowns with 11 interceptions. He also ran for 754 yards and 4 TDs and helped the Buckeyes win the Sugar Bowl. Dave Ferry, The Associated Press.
Yeah, we thank Dave of the Associated Press for helping us out here on Louis Live, and I have a lot of different issues, thoughts, if you will. Terrell Pryor, I'm not saying he's Maurice Clarett, because Clarett at some point in his career, after his career in his life, drove around in a SUV with a bunch of guns. That's not Terrell Pryor. Pryor's not a bright kid, but he's a good kid. I think at the end of the day, he made a mistake with the tattoos, but there's still some baggage there. I don't necessarily like the way he kind of skipped out on Ohio State to avoid the suspension. I'm a big, big fan of what Roger Goodell did. He said, no, you cannot get out of this. You will not get away with this. You must be suspended for 5 games. And I like that. I think that's fair. I think that's good and that's honest. After the 5-game suspension, what's going to happen? Most likely the rookie year, tutor year, be under Jason Campbell's tutorage, hold the clipboard, study the playbook. After that, I'm not sure where he's going to go. He's not going to be a top-flight quarterback because the top quarterbacks like Brady, Manning, Drew Brees, we'll throw out Callie Daves, man in the Chargers, Phillip Rivers, they're pocket-passing quarterbacks. That is the key to success. Aaron Rodgers, obviously, that's what wins in the NFL. Guys like Vic, guys like Vince Young, Cordell Stewart, Randall Cunningham, great players, very athletic. Steve Young really was the only running quarterback to win a title. But even then, I mean, he had a monkey in his back for a long time. Generally, running quarterbacks don't do well. You mentioned the running stats. Now, he's got all the talent in the world, one heck of an arm. Ohio State is not playing in the SEC. It's not the toughest conference in the country, but certainly a great program. They had some stiff competition, Wisconsin, Michigan to some degree, obviously, as well. So he's going to do pretty good in the NFL. I think if he keeps his head on focused, I think he's not Jamarcus Russell. I think Russell was a guy just happy to take a lot of money, be the number 1 pick, and just quit. He's not getting a lot of money. The records, what he's getting paid, the contract is not being released. I don't think it's that significant. It's 4 years. He was taking a supplemental draft. Jamarcus Russell doesn't have to work a day in his life. In fact, really no one in his family does because he got such a huge signing bonus for being the number 1 overall pick. And he turned into Ryan Leaf. They got their money and they just chilled. They didn't work hard. They didn't try. They didn't care. It didn't matter. Pryor's going to have to work hard to get the second contract, which will make him the most amount of money. Zach Thomas was very famous about 10 years ago with the Dolphins. He talked about that. Hey, I was a guy who was not drafted so high. I did not get up in the ranks on draft day. I knew I would have to make my money on the second contract. Thus, he had to work his butt off. Pryor's going to have to work his butt off to get a second contract. I think the hunger is there. I think he'll want to prove some people wrong. I just think talent-wise, because he's a running quarterback, his style is not the pocket passer, that he's not going to crack in the top 10 of quarterbacks. I don't think it'll be due to work ethic. I really, really don't. And when I say all the talent in the world, I mean more that with his legs than his arm. And I don't think, again, top elite quarterback. But I think he'll be pretty popular in Oakland. Again, if you just got to keep his focus there, keep everything straight track, don't make another mistake, I think eyes in Oakland will be on him. Not just the fans, of course, but the management. They don't want to be embarrassed. They've been embarrassed too many times in Oakland. They're taking a chance on this kid. They got him in the supplemental draft. It really wasn't that much of a gamble. Yes, they'll have to give the 3rd-round pick next season, but they figure why not go for it. He was a Heisman candidate last year in his junior season. Would have been the Heisman favorite going in the senior season at The Ohio State University. Why not take a chance, roll the dice, see what happens? It's Raider Nation. So the old saying goes, time will tell. That division, though, is winnable. Even with the Chargers in it, it's winnable, and even if it's not winnable, the wild card is there. In the AFC, you need probably 10 wins to get a wild card berth, but it's possible. It's there for them if they have a decent guy running the offense. So they have a decent guy under center. And I'm not saying a top 15 quarterback in the league could probably get them that wild card spot, get them a 6th spot. But the Raiders aren't going anywhere this year. Last year was a fluke that they even had a chance to go to the playoffs. Not happening this year. Jason Campbell, God bless you, but You're Jason Campbell. We got some exciting guests coming on this week. Huge stuff. Where do we even begin? Wow, goodness gracious. Tomorrow, Bryn Jonathan Butler, the man who made the documentary on Hero Madness. It's a great film that's about to come out in 2 months, I believe. We'll get the details from Bryn tomorrow night. Big fan of Louis Live. We're a big fan of his as well. He'll talk about Guillermo, one of the greatest amateur boxers of all time, if not the greatest. Undefeated at this point. He is a world champion at 123 pounds, 122. I don't know the weight class exactly. Apologize about that, but he is undefeated. He's fought in the undercard of the Manny Pacquiao fight in Cowboy Stadium, so certainly a very significant fighter. Bryn will be on tomorrow night. Tuesday, we're looking to have Ian Schwartz. Ian is a broadcaster from New Mexico out in Albuquerque. We like to support our Jewish friends, even if they're in the middle of nowhere in the desert, because, hey, the Jew's a Jew. He's a good friend of mine. Very happy to have him on. Be a little more weather broadcasting talk than sports, but we'll ask him a couple sports questions just to kind of goof with him. I used to work with Ian in Arizona. Very talented, very funny gentleman as well. It's a great fit that he is a weatherman. I think that's an excellent decision by the powers that be in New Mexico. Later on in the week, the great Jim Williams, of course, Thursday at 11 p.m. We're looking to get on Henry Tillman as well, kind of dotting the I's, crossing the T's, if you will, about getting him on Israel Sports Radio. He's going to come on, just a matter of which time and which day. A couple other things we're working on as well this week on Louis Live, so great stuff. Tonight's show has been epic. It is not too often you get a guest the caliber of Mr. Shelley Saltman. He's done everything. He's been everywhere, accomplished a great deal in his career, and very humble about it when you think about it. Kind of just happy to serve, happy to do things for other people, not egotistical, even though he could brag if he certainly wanted to, and has great storytelling abilities. I love the Will Chamberlain Ali story. We didn't even get to the NFL replacement players in 82, and we had him on for about 53 minutes or so. So that kind of tells you he's done everything. Worked with the Jackie Gleason show. We didn't even get to him working with the Osbournes. We ran out of time, but worked with the Jackie Gleason show. Was involved in creating plastic credit cards, was involved in creating cell phones, was involved, again, the Ali Frazier promotions, and one of the first owners of the Phoenix Suns. Worked with the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Very influential man, very powerful man, and was involved with a lot of influential, powerful people. So, again, huge honor to have Mr. Shelley Saltman on, and I was very flattered that he considered it an honor to be on my program. Callers, great as always. Radio Mike giving us the lowdown and the update of Hurricane Irene out on the East Coast. Our prayers and thoughts with everyone on the East Coast. We hope that everyone is safe out there. All the good people on the East Coast are safe. And Cali Dave breaking down the preseason, talk a little smack, talk a little trash because his Chargers beat up on my Cardinals. Hey, it's preseason. I don't really care. I look for certain signs of the preseason, not the record, not who wins the game. Calder Fitzgerald for 80 yards. That works for me. Cardinals will win that division. And Andy from the East Coast telling us a great story how the Rebels title game victory was listened by a good friend who used to serve pizza at Kraft Family Stadium. He was able to hear the ball game, even though he was in the United States when the Rebels were victorious. IFL week, I believe, will be next week. We're still in the works, trying to talk things over with the commissioner and with Mr. Ofri Becker. Want to get, obviously, a lot of players, a lot of teams on. Very excited about IFL week next week. So stay tuned throughout the week, this week, and throughout the whole year, because we'll be here on Israel Sports Radio. Appreciate everyone listening tonight. Appreciate the callers and Mr. Shelley Saltman. And that's it for tonight. It's all right. God bless and good night.